Hey everyone, I'm Coach Joel, and today I have a really interesting hand of the day for you. It actually comes from one of my own sessions. Recently played in an online 2-4 game, and I was holding aces in middle position and found myself in a multi-way pot against a player that I've noticed is quite tricky, and he can put people in some tough spots. And I actually wound up making a fold that I don't normally make. So very excited to share this with you, and hopefully it sparks a good discussion in the comments. So I open aces in middle position. Actually, two players limp first, under the gun limps, and then seat four is the player that we are concerned with in this hand the most, because he's kind of the tricky, trappy player. He limps behind, and I make it 20, basically three times the big blind plus one for each limper, pretty standard. Folds around, small blind calls, and both limpers call. And we go to the flop, and the the flop comes three of spades, seven of spades, four of hearts. And before it can get to me, the trappy player makes a 1/3 pot lead. And my antenna starts to go up here. And part of the reason is thinking about what his limp behind range is. So this is a very aggressive player. He plays around 20 to 25% of hands like you're supposed to, but he usually raises more like 17 or 18% of them. So when he's limping behind from early position and he doesn't limp re-raise, I'm putting him on a very specific range. I'm no longer giving him suited cards where he has 10 or better for both cards. I'm simply not putting him on hands like 10 jack suited, 10 queen suited, that type of hand, because I'm pretty sure that he would isolate the limper. I'm also not putting him on big pairs because he would raise or re-raise those hands. I'm not putting him on big Broadway cards like ace king and ace queen. So I'm thinking that his range here consists largely of low pocket pairs. I'm thinking twos through sevens are squarely in his range. He also has some suited connectors that potentially he wanted to see a cheap flop with, but didn't want to inflate the pot. So maybe he has some hands like 4-5 suited, all the way up to maybe 7-8 suited, or potentially 8-9 suited. And then maybe he has a few of the very best suited one gapper and two gapper hands like king nine suited, queen nine suited, jack nine suited, maybe 10-8 suited here, and possibly 9-7 suited. So that type of range, it's speculative hands, it's a lot of low pairs. And when he makes this bet into me, where he basically sandwiches me between the two other players, and I get the sense, and I've seen him make a similar play before, I get the sense that what he wants me to do is to raise his bet. I feel like this is a bet that he's trying to induce action, and it's going to be a hard hand to play if I raise him and then he comes over the top for a jam. I don't think that he's betting too many hands I don't think he's betting like a weak pair here, like pocket twos. But I think in his betting range are hands like threes, fours. Maybe he is betting fives or sixes, as kind of a pot controlling line. He's got a pair and a gut shot. Maybe he will turn it into a bluff later, potentially. But I think threes through sevens are squarely in his range when he makes this bet. And then he has a few flush draws, but as mentioned before, not as many as we may think. Because he's raising any two cards 10 or higher that are suited, I just think that he doesn't have nearly as many flush draws as I would hope. So maybe he has 8-9 of spades, although maybe he raises that some of the time here, actually. Definitely could be making a trappy play with 5-6 suited. And then a few other spade combos like his king nine suited, queen nine suited, jack nine suited, 10-8 suited. So he has maybe 5 or 6 flush draw combos that he could be leading into me with here. But he does have 9 sets and 4 straight combos. So 13 very strong value combos that he could put me in a tough spot with here. So I actually elect to just call. And I also want to call to see what the other players in the hand do, If they decide to check raise, it'll basically give away seat four's hand because he'll have to respond to that threat before I do. So I elect to play the flop a little bit slowly and just smooth call. The limper, first limper calls, and then we go to the turn. And the turn is the queen of diamonds. And one interesting dynamic is developing here. So the first limper is kind of the VIP of the table. He is not folding many hands at all. And typically, if you're betting multi-way in a hand that contains him, there's a good chance that you're value betting because you're like as mentioned, you're very likely to be called by him. So when he checks and seat four makes an $120 bet, so 3/4 pot into two callers, alarm bells start to go off a little bit here. So already I thought he was trying to induce action and induce me to raise the flop. So I was already being a little bit cautious there. But when he makes this bet into not only me, but kind of the VIP of the game as well, I'm not folding to it yet, but I'm starting to be a bit concerned. I no longer think that he is betting a hand like fives or sixes at that high of a frequency, like at best half of those combinations. So maybe he's betting threes, fours, sevens, five, six suited here. So he's 13 value. Maybe 50% of the time he bets fives or sixes. So he has six of those combos. And maybe he has a few flush draws. So queen nine suited just made top pair. He could be betting that. He could have king nine suited in spades, jack nine spades, 10-8 in spades, but not as many flush draws as you would think. So when you factor in the flush draws that he has and the possibility that he's turning a hand like fives or sixes into a bluff here, I'm beating about half the combinations that he has. I'm losing to about half. I'm getting odds here. I'm not ready to fold this hand, and I'm planning on using position to kind of evaluate rivers and see what seat two does as well. So I do decide to make the call here. I'm pretty much at the top of my range after I just flat the flop. So I'm not ready to let this one go just yet, but alarm bells are certainly going off. Seat two does decide to fold, and the river is the queen of hearts. And at this point, seat four decides to jam. So I have 600, a little bit over 600 behind. So it's basically a 1.5x jam. This is a spot where he's heavily polarized. I need better than 33% chance to win this. I need about 38% or so to win the hand. Do I have 38%? And that's what I start to think about. So yes, he could have some flush draw misses here, although queen nine of spades just backed into trips, which beats me. So starting with his value hands, he has queen nine of spades, has the three sets as mentioned. So that's 10 value combinations between sets and queen nine of spades. And then he has five, six suited. So he has 14 value combos here. And in order to make this call and feel good about it, I need to find at least, say, 9 or 10 bluffs because seven is not going to be enough. Seven would be if he was making a pot size bet, but he's making a 1.5x bet. So does he have 9 or 10 bluffs when he makes this bet? Well, because of the range that I gave him with a limping range, I was thinking he has king nine of spades could make this play, jack nine of spades, potentially 10-8 of spades, and then maybe some of the time he turns a pair into a bluff, although again, on this board, he might plan to check call with fives or sixes or hand like 4-5 suited some of the time and not bluff with it because my range is loaded with busted spade combos. I mean, I just flatted the flop. I just flatted the turn. I played the hand a lot like I had a draw. So I would assume that if he had a pair like fives or sixes, he might check, planning to check call and pick off a bluff rather than always turning it into a bluff himself. So at most here, now I said maybe he only has 6 combinations when he bets into me and kind of the VIP on the turn. At most, I'm thinking he maybe has 3 of those on the river that he decides to turn into a bluff, just roughly. So say he has three pairs turned into bluffs. He has king nine suited, like I said. He has jack nine suited. He has 10-8 in spades. Um, he has basically six bluffs. And we get to 9 or 10, I just don't think that we can. I think that he knows how the optics of this look. The flush front door flush draw has missed. It's fairly fishy. He's representing few hands, but he's a thinking player and he knows that. So I think he expects me to look up this over bet with a hand like what I have. I thought he was trying to induce action all along on the flop. And then when he follows up with a big size into the VIP on the turn, I'm just in a spot where I'm not going to be hero calling this that often. Even though I have a great hand to hero call with, I don't have spades in my hand. I'm close to the top of my range. So it's actually technically not a hero call. It's actually a solid call that a lot of players would make. I just think that the dynamic of it being a multi-way pot with him having a very distinct limping range that kind of smashes this board, and where a lot of his bluffs, the higher spade combinations, are missing, that it's just not a great spot to be bluff catching. So I do elect to fold. I never found out what his hand was. Pains me to this day. And I know that my strategy here is a little bit unbalanced, given that I might be over folding here quite often, but I do have queen X of spades in my range that I would be willing to call down with. I have anywhere from queen 10 of spades to call, queen jack, queen king, and queen ace. So I have at least four combinations that will absolutely be calling here. So I know that I'm not folding everything to him, and he can't always get away with this play. At least if he's willing to make the play into the VIP at the table, it's very bold play of him. Well deserved. This pot goes to him. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about this hand. Really do consider that his limping range in this spot is quite different from a normal opening range, and see if you think this should have been a call or a fold. Thanks, everyone. Bye.